I wanted to bring today's episode to the podcast talking all about personal care. When you are on the fertility journey, it is very important to make sure that you are not exposed to any endocrine disrupting chemicals. And the best place to start is with your personal care. We were talking about the chemicals, which ones to look out for, how you can avoid these harmful products and chemicals, and what's the some steps you can take right now to then switch over to non-toxic options so you can prepare for pregnancy success. Let's go. Hey, Rachel, excited to have you on the podcast.
Yes, lovely to be here with you, Sarah, and discuss all things clean beauty and personal care products for fertility.
I love it. I love it. And so, really, can you share with the listeners how you came to do this work?
Yes, after I received my bachelor's of science in nursing, I then wasn't sure if I wanted to become a medical doctor, dentist, or naturopath. So then I went and did my medical school prerequisites, which involved general chemistry, organic chem, and biochem, which has obviously lended some insights into the skincare world and peptide world for what I do as now a double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist. I, right after nursing school, did 2 years of pediatric ICU care, and that was very stressful. And so a lot of times nurses don't stay in that side of things for a long time. And then I actually partnered up with a oculoplastic surgeon, ophthalmology. There's sort of like this hierarchy in the rejuvenation world. There's the general dermatologist, the plastic surgeon, cosmetic dermatology, and then the oculoplastics. That's where I sat for a really long time and ended up loving it and didn't feel the need that I had to go to medical school, and obviously interested in having a family. So that's part of that too. And 20,000 rejuvenation procedures later, I have also learned a lot of things in regards to biohacking for the skin. So I'm sort of like that biohacking beauty nerd. And, I've been in preconception mode myself too actively for a couple years, just doing that prep work ahead of time to make sure I'm as pure as possible. And I also wrote a recent academic article because I'm a researcher, I think 5, 6 times published now in US and UK journals, and active peer reviewer on a US nursing journal too. And I found this connection between purifying our environment and allowing us to get the best hair, skin, nails of our life. And as many of you are listening, are likely, how do we clean up our act? We're getting pregnant and all of those things. When you do this work, your skin's going to benefit too. So there's some great overlaps for us to discuss.
Absolutely. Yeah. We see this all the time where, like people, well, first of all, like one of the first steps we do have people, switch out their products to non-toxic options. And we have them kind of do it slowly because sometimes people just get overwhelmed. They throw the whole entire thing out and that becomes a stressor in itself. And then your adrenal glands are flatlined because you're so worried about all the toxins. And so it is to gradually, make the changes. For me, it's something that took quite a while to do. I would nail the diet. And for some reason I was still using Tide and still hadn't changed my skincare. And it's like crazy now to look back because it is, and there's so many more options now, which can be overwhelming, but it's also like there's options that actually work. In the very beginning of this, years and years ago, you try something and it was supposed to be clean and yeah, it was junk. And you're like, and I tried all these things with essential oils, my skin flaked off, all these problems. So, now I definitely find it a lot more easy to navigate. We're going to kind of talk about some regimens that Rachel likes towards the end of the episode. Definitely stay tuned for that. So, but let's talk about really, we're exposed to all these chemicals in these personal care, and this is not just for female fertility. Is for male fertility as well. Not 50-50, right? So we got to both do it. So what are you seeing there? What are anything you want to talk about as far as what we're exposed to from the chemicals in our products?
Yes, absolutely. So the heavy hitter chemicals you must start avoiding in not only your skincare, but also your personal care products and your cleaning products include parabens, phthalates, sulfates, artificial dyes, and fragrances that contain phthalates. If the fragrance is an essential oil, that's fine. Now, these are snuck into absolutely anything and everything. And unfortunately, when you go to these big box stores, CVS, Sephora, all these things, they have, their flagship products or other products that are sort of marketed as being green and all natural and super clean. And then you look at the ingredients and they have, canola oil, or I've actually seen BPA and tin as ingredients. And also in the health influencer space, Sarah, you and I know a lot of different influencers out there. And what I find is when certain speakers and influencers are talking about skincare, they're oftentimes recommending this one line. It starts with a B and ends with a C.
Mhm.
And what I
Yeah.
noticed was their quality started to go down about 4 months ago. And I started to see different rancid vegetable and toxic oils added to their formulation. So I have a unique perspective with being able to keep my finger on the pulse of different products that the general population is using through my one-on-one consults, because I go through products that people are using, my clients are using, and then I'll give them the yay that they can work through it. And then I'll get them onto something that's maybe going to be a bit more effective for things like melasma, pigmentation, acne, dryness, redness, or the nay. And, this is really where my biohacking and also my biochemistry background comes in handy to be able to very quickly discern on the ingredients list that this is something you absolutely need to avoid because it's a hormone disruptor. So all of those agents that I mentioned, parabens, phthalates, sulfates, artificial dyes, fragrances, they're pretty much all hormone disruptors, as well as chemical sunscreen filters. So we see this a lot with primers, with moisturizers, with sunscreen, with foundations, with sunscreen in it, or even products that are marketed as being a mineral sunscreen, but they're a blend. This is really tricky. So the way to determine if your sunscreen is a blend, and you need to avoid the chemical sunscreen filters, avobenzone, oxybenzone. And I've actually been seeing some new ones come to surface just even over the last 2 months or so. In the active ingredients, if you find your product that has sunscreen in it, flip it over to the back. It should say in the active ingredients, it should only have zinc or titanium. If it has anything that ends with an ane or an one in that active ingredient section, not the full ingredients list, but the active ingredient section, you need to stop using that because those are known hormone disruptors and they're so toxic, they're actually killing coral reefs and countries are starting to ban them. So that's the toxin I find that gets snuck in is the chemical sunscreen filters for sure.
Yeah, and so many of us are coating ourselves in this sunscreen that we're not even getting the proper vitamin, our vitamin D. So it's a whole other episode. Yeah, so an average woman will use 12 products and has 168 different ingredients, and a man is 6 products with 85 different ingredients, and a lot of those can be linked to cancer, infertility, skin allergies, birth defects, reproductive problems, learning disabilities. A lot of these toxins. There's the Dirty Dozen endocrine disruptors, which you can go to the EWG and it'll just lay it out just like the Dirty Dozen foods. You want to make sure those ones are that you get in and get organic. These ones you want to avoid, and so and then actually it's just interesting too what the skin piece. Done many episodes on the health of the skin. It was a direct reflection of the health of the gut, and then the gut is tied to the ovaries. So if you're dealing, so I had POI at 28 and had both my kids with donor eggs, and we see many people that we're working with with low AMH and high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve, premature ovarian insufficiency, and dealing with acne, with hives, with psoriasis, with dermatitis, all sorts of cystic acne, things going on their skin, and then we're using all these topical things to fix it and not getting to the gut. So I do believe it's a combination of both. It's not just about a product, or nor is it just about the gut. But yeah, so any comments on any of that?
Yeah, well, first off, the whole EWG thing, I wouldn't fully rely on that database because if, say, a product has retinol or benzoyl peroxide, or essentially an ingredient that you're told to avoid during pregnancy, it's automatically going to give a really great product that has really great actives a really bad rating. And so the EWG database, I would say, is okay for, the most part, but I wouldn't actually rely on it. I would rely on someone more like myself that this is what I do for a living. I study ingredients. I work with 17 different brands, and I basically distill down the best of the best because every line has duds and superstars. And, there could be an excellent product that I've had a client email me and say, hey, this, product has a high EWG rating. What do you think about this? And I said, well, it's because there's retinol in it.
Mm.
And so it's going to have a high rating because retinol is something to be avoided during pregnancy because it's totally unethical to test anything on mother and babe. And so that's something that's been determined to possibly be teratogenic during pregnancy. Same with hydroquinone and all of those things. You mentioned something really important with the gut connection. And in my recent academic article, I talked about the importance of purifying your environment. You're going to get the best skin of your life when something called your oxidative stress status, or what I like to refer to as the toxic bucket, is as empty as possible. The more empty this toxic bucket is, the better able you can handle an extra stressful situation, or you spend some time in a friend or family member's moldy home, or you eat food that maybe has canola oil or whatnot. You're just exposed to something through the air, water, lighting, electromagnetics, or also organisms in the gut. So the emptier we can keep this toxic bucket on a daily basis, the less likely it's going to tip over. And then, a client experiences things like psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis, atopic dermatitis, acne, melasma, accelerated aging, fine lines and wrinkles seemingly appearing overnight. There's a huge link with the gut and the skin. That's why I love to study the skin. My work is a lot less superficial than people might think because the skin is actually what I would say the late showcase of what's going on internally. So the better your internal systems are, the more pure you are. Air, water, lighting, electromagnetics. And then, of course, there's the emotional, spiritual, the energetic components of being super pure and balanced. That's where radiance comes in, which is actually, interestingly enough, according to Ayurveda, the radiant body, we have our body, mind, spirit, energy, and then other aspects to ourselves. The radiant body is the electromagnetic projection of all the other aspects of you. And that's really exciting to me. So the more pure our system is, the better your skin's going to be. The one thing that I see get missed in gut analysis with people, and yes, for hormones, you really want to start with the gut. Definitely, number one thing to start with if you're having troubles getting pregnant, things like that, is to start with your gut health. 80% of North Americans are dealing with an active parasitic infection. And for myself, I started to actively clear parasites last March. So this was, almost a year and a half ago now, and I'm still clearing them. So some of us can have some type of gut dysbiosis for whatever reason that makes us more susceptible to these things. I had no skin clues that this was going on because sometimes acne or really deep cystic acne can actually be a parasitic infection in the skin. And a lot of practitioners just aren't aware of how prevalent it is. And, there's some protocols to clear that. But the more and more I study the gut and yeast, fungi, parasites, mold, heavy metals, the more I see that there's a huge hormonal connection as well as skin condition connection too. So I'm sure you're well aware of how to clear those things out, but it's an active thing. It's the purification degree that I talk about is kind of like priestess level purification. It's ongoing. You don't just, do a 3-day, 10-day cleanse and, that's it. We're talking like every 21 days, putting yourself through a cleanse to keep your gut super clear so that your hormones are going to be in check and your skin. There's a reason why pregnant women have this glow is because they're doing their best to avoid all of these toxins in their skincare, cosmetic creams, makeup, personal care products, household cleaning products. However, I'm of the position that you should actually always be avoiding those toxins unless you're wanting to actually use things like retinol, AHAs, BHAs, hydroquinone to address different skin conditions, but those are definitely not done during pregnancy.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting. Like for me, during my teens, I had great skin, and all of a sudden, early 20s, the acne started coming around the chin. And then the first thing that I was put on was hormonal birth control, right? So many people, the same thing. Oh, wait, you have acne. Let's give you Accutane or birth control. And it's just a Band-Aid. Not to say everyone that goes on birth control comes off and has fertility issues, but we see many people weren't put on for prevention. It's because they had acne or they had the irregular cycles or heavy cycles, and they're just handed a pill, and no one's digging deeper and what else is, out of balance and what's happening there. So definitely, yeah, we see regularly people with, the parasites, bacterial infections, fungal infections, all something, H. pylori, so lowering your stomach acid. So you're eating this nice organic diet, but you're not absorbing all the nutrients. So, we see that all the time. So what about the cosmetic industry? Like, what's your take on the big business of that, and any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I would consider, big beauty, big cosmo to be just as bad as big pharma and big food, right? And a lot of the times people don't know this, but a lot of really, massive brands in the skin and beauty space are actually owned by big food or actually owned by big pharma. So that's why you have to be very diligent to either try your best to do your research on products or just find practitioners like Sarah and myself that this is what we do, right? We study this stuff to save you a lot of time and money so you don't have to try and do the guesswork. So, yes, just as bad as the other industries to some degree. And when you mentioned chin acne, oftentimes if I get breakouts to my jawline, it can be due to, adrenal fatigue or stress or issues with the gut or also stagnant lymph. So, what I like to do is actually recommend a practice of facial gua sha. So, basically, you're moving your lymph in your face because about 30% of our lymph nodes in our body are in our head and neck. But because we don't have the same type of skeletal muscle movement that we do on our arms and our legs, for example, to move that lymph, it's a good idea to manually manipulate and move that stagnant lymph out so that new lymph can come in. So when I notice maybe the odd little breakout here, it tells me that I got to bump up my facial massage to basically move that old lymph out into the thoracic nodes from the head and the neck, and actually teach that technique in my skin camps on how to actually put your products on and then double duty get this lymphatic drainage. And you don't need a gua sha roller. You don't need a gua sha tool. Your fingertips are just as good. And also that whole industry too, right? A lot of people don't know that there's a lot of slave labor that goes into making a lot of those tools that are coming from the Orient. Not to mention, energy that could be attached to that too. So your fingertips are just as good. And actually, our two fingertips here give off a lot of energy on the body. And I know this because I have a piece of technology called the BioWell that you can use for diagnostics for the human biofield, the mitochondrial joule output, really fascinating tech. We actually have light coming off of our fingertips that can be analyzed and extrapolated using Kirlian photography with a computer software. So that's really cool stuff. The stagnant lymph is often forgotten about, and you should be able to clear a red breakout or something even like a bug bite or a mosquito bite in 3 days. If it's taking longer than that, that's a sign that your body's toxic bucket is a little full and you're not managing inflammation or stress well. And, stress plays a huge part in the quality of our hair, the quality of our skin and our nails and our fertility as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have people when they do the elimination diet, if they've got, maybe more acne will come along, or they might feel nauseous, or as they make these changes. So it is to do dry skin brushing, and you can do, rebounding to move the lymph, and you can do milk thistle tea and obviously more water. But that gua sha thing, I got that, and I'm like, finally looking at all these YouTube, tutorials, trying to figure out how to do here. And like, oh my God, the chin, it's a disaster. But yeah, it's sort of like a quick, so I think there was like ones where you're supposed to go up, and I was going here and there. I did it for about a month. And then, I have my little roller that I just like it. It's like I take a couple minutes every day, and I don't know if I'm doing it in the right direction. I personally enjoy that. Just especially when I'm up north, I sit outside, put the roller on, do that, and then put on my creams and stuff. But do you have any quick little tips on the gua sha or the roller?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to do things that are good for our body and are a really good use of our time and money, because time is this one commodity we can't get back. So I'm not going to recommend rolling. I'm going to recommend when you're cleansing, taking that 30 seconds to a minute in the bath or the shower, single cleanse in the AM, double cleanse in the PM. We'll talk about routines closer to this episode, like you said. But instead of using like a jade roller for lymph movement, that's like a smooth stone, I'd actually recommend dermal rolling instead.
Oh,
So, rollers that I work with, I'm very particular, by the way, about the dermal rollers to use and what serums to use with dermal rolling. I've been working with at home microneedling and dermal rolling. Those names are kind of interchangeable. I've been working with rolling with my clients at home since 2011. And I had the opportunity to learn about microneedling at home and in the clinic from one of the original researchers. There were four dermal rolling kind of like experts that came up with the technique all at the same time. And so I was able to learn at the very beginning of me getting into the industry, how to do this, which rollers to actually buy, and what serums and skin protocols to use that actually deliver results. We're talking thicker skin, and even my clients in their 60s to 90s that roll, less pigmentation, less fine lines or wrinkles, less pore size, reduced pore size rather, and they have thicker skin than clients I see in their 20s and 30s. So this is a collagen stimulation building game. So for you, Sarah, to use your time and energy a little bit more efficiently, I would say just do your facial lymphatic drainage when you are in the bath or shower, when you're cleansing, and each time you're putting on your moisturizer and your sunscreen, and then maybe 2 to 5 times a week for about 15, 20 minutes, do your at-home dermal rolling to create these little tiny channels of injury in the skin, like aerating the lawn, and then applying the right products on over top. But the thing about YouTube is you have, Bill, Doug, Sally, and Sue talking about their routines. And I've seen a lot of issues and really bad technique with free dermal rolling tutorials that I've seen online. Basically, every at home microneedling dermal rolling tutorial I've ever seen on YouTube has been teaching really bad technique. And, I tried this product. And then they're talking about products that they're trying, right? So I have a different perspective being a clinician and actually seeing protocols at work. Now, just a little warning here that a lot of dermal rollers or at-home stampers and things like that, the needles aren't needles under the microscope. They can be blades, and a lot of them are made in the Orient. So they're full of heavy metals. They're not just the surgical steel or titanium. And they're a 10 to 20 use kind of product. Then you dispose of them, which creates waste rather than using a 2-year product that's been proven to provide results since the 90s. So when you work with a practitioner, it's like for your client, Sarah, when they go on YouTube and try and get access to all this free stuff, rather than investing a little bit of time and money to work with a clinician, you're going to get this whole different caliber of information.
yeah, it is the Wild West out there too, right? Trying to figure out this out on your own. You can do I've myself probably spent all kinds of money trying to figure out products that are going to work for me, because I feel like you probably hear this all the time, but everyone's like, I got sensitive skin. Like, I do believe I have sensitive skin, and every person that probably says it, they believe they have sensitive skin as well. I remember just getting all the stuff I was using was giving me eczema. It'd be itchy, it'd be all these problems. And so I'd find a brand that I wouldn't deviate it, usually every couple of years or so. I find myself just changing the brands just because I get sick of it. But yeah, it is interesting with that piece, trying to figure this out. I guess from if you're looking for a clean brain, clean as in quotes, what are some labels that you're like, wow, these are really good labels to have from that if you got that on there, and what are labels that you're like, ooh, that doesn't mean anything?
Yeah. So if you're referring to brands that I like, my recommendations are actually always subject to change, because sometimes a brand could get bought by another company and then they reformulate, like that brand that starts with the B and also has the C in that. So That's why on interviews and social media, you don't see me talking about a lot of product specifics or brands. So that's where the one-on-one comes in handy, which we should definitely do for you, Sarah.
Yeah,
And then I can give you recommendations on that time. So that's why shopping on my e-store is so helpful, because at that time, that's my superstar list of, the 15 to 18, I think it's 17 brands that I work with. And I source the superstars from those brands. In my experience, working with so many brands over the years, practitioner and all these things, is that every brand has superstars and every brand has duds. So those duds are either going to be, products in that whole line or label that has toxins, or it just doesn't deliver results and it's just a waste of money. So my e-store is basically the best distilled down. And I'm always adding and removing items based on if something new and better comes out as well. So that's my answer to that. It just depends when you're listening to this and what my recommendations are.
awesome.
The
Yeah.
top, yeah, when you mentioned sensitive skin, I basically hear almost everybody say this as well, right? So I'm glad you brought this up. Now, what people don't think about is how quickly you can overcome sensitive skin in about 2 weeks. So I started to see this when I would first meet with a client in the clinic. We'd take their before photos. I'd recommend a basic skincare routine of cleanser, moisturizer, sunscreen, scrub. It doesn't need to be complicated, but it does need to be specific and customized to your needs, as well as have specific actives to stabilize the skin. It's almost like we whisper to the skin to stabilize it. And in about 2 weeks, you can really start to see reduction in redness, more glassiness to the skin, and even some of your pigmentations start to fade. It can happen really quickly. So across the board, clients that I've worked with that have sensitive skin, guess what? They're typically using oil-based products. They're using oil cleansers. They're not cleansing in the AM and PM. They're a water splasher in the AM. They're not cleansing. So if you're not cleansing adequately 2 times a day with the double cleanse in the PM, you're actually keeping debris from the air on the skin. Dirt, debris, heavy metal, most heavy metal our body takes in is actually from the air, mold, things like that. And it actually messes with the keratinocyte stem cells in the skin that I found in my research. So that's why cleansing the skin is so important. And bonus tip here, shower and bathe with either your whole home reverse osmosis system, or if that's too expensive, at least use a shower filter.
Yeah.
And I have a whole list of my favorites for these kind of things. But when I hear that I've got sensitive skin, I say, give me 2 weeks on a basic routine, and you should see that sensitivity start to go.
Yeah, we have everybody switch out their shower filter, because if you have thyroid issues, and 100% of people that we're working with have got a thyroid issue, if you've got low AMH and high FSH, and then you're inhaling all the vapors in the shower, and that's not helpful for you either. Okay, so let's kind of take us through what would a skincare, sort of, you kind of touched on it briefly there. So like a skincare regimen, what would that look like? And just, yeah, let you know, I am like always have been very into, I never go to bed without washing my face. Even back in the university days when I was dead drunk, I'd be like, okay, I gotta wash my face before I go to bed. It's like some thing form that I personally love doing. It just washes off the day. And so I'm totally into it. I do not wash my face in the morning because I'm like, oh, my skin's dry. It feels like it's too much. So let's have you kind of talk about what's skincare regimen, your skincare morning and evening. What would that look like?
For me personally, I would not be able to go throughout the day without having washed my skin in the AM and then putting on my moisturizer and sunscreen. My skin would feel dry and itchy and really gross.
Okay.
So here you go. Here's an example. You just don't know how good you can feel or how good your skin can feel until you start to do these improvements in your protocol.
Mhm.
So that's why a double cleanse in the PM is really important. So the first cleanse is getting off the dirt, debris, pollution, cosmetic creams, and makeup. And then your second cleanse is actually washing your face.
Oh,
So that's why that double cleanse in the PM is so key. And then the single cleanse in the AM. Notice I'm not saying morning because we don't want to morn the morning. I study word choice and communication as a part of radiance and beautiful presentation as well. Just a little tidbit there. But you definitely want to be cleansing in the AM because of dirt debris from the air. You got your hair in your face, maybe your partner, your fur babies, things like that. So cleansing is super important when you wake up. Across the board, those clients I work with, like you said, I've got sensitive skin. They're the water splashers in the AM. You start to modulate that and tweak that, and improvements.
And when you're washing your face, are you like splashing the water off with your hands, or are you like getting a cloth? Like, what do you do for that?
I actually recommend bathing twice a day. So when I use, say, for example, the filtered shower head, my skin doesn't really get dry. And, if your skin is getting dry, then there's some beautiful products I can suggest for that. But you're actually going to get a better cleanse in the bath or the shower as opposed to over the sink. If I wash my face over the sink, I'm going to be having a water fight in my restroom. And I actually don't use washcloths. I don't use microfibers. I don't recommend eye makeup removers, micellar waters, makeup wipes. See right there. Those are 3 products that you can start to completely eliminate exposure to toxins, time, and also waste, right? And money, right? On things that you just really don't need. The other thing that I think is worth touching on is the alcohol piece, because you mentioned being able to, go to bed, you always wash your face even after being drunk. And then I hear a lot of people saying, oh, just have all that wine and those drinks when you're trying to make a baby. But that's going to catch up with you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't want to be having alcohol. This is back in the 20s. Yeah, we definitely don't want to be having alcohol right now. If you're drinking, there's a whole sober curious movement afoot, and all kinds of mocktails and like adaptogen drinks, and there's all sorts of fun things you could just go down a rabbit hole of like fun with, and it doesn't need to be you down in tequila.
I love that you mentioned adaptogenic drinks, and I actually drink superfoods and adaptogenic, beautiful tasting drinks all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what actually helps to keep my adrenals in check. And there are some specific brands that I suggest. They're on my favorites biohacking page as well. And they just taste so good. They're mocktails. You and your partner can have them. You can give them to your kids. They're way less expensive than going to the store and getting a fresh pressed juice. There's organic ones, glyphosate-free ones, and they got these adaptogens to help your body manage that oxidative stress or just stress in general, right? So yeah, the alcohol is a big piece. It is going to mess with your liver, which is thus going to mess with your hormones. So that's why you do definitely want to just keep your lifestyle as pure as possible. I mean, there's something to be said for having alcohol. It's a little bit of a treat here and there, but no more than a couple times a week. If you can avoid it, that's going to be even better. Your skin will thank you. Because I do find increased alcohol leads to obviously accelerated aging, dryness, breakouts, gut dysbiosis, right? It's going to contribute to issues with the gut. And then you're going to see that on the skin. So yeah, let me know any other questions you have for our skin.
Yeah, alcohol like poison to the gut, just inflammation. Okay, so we have the more. So we do the nighttime. We're washing twice. Sorry, yeah, we're washing twice, and then what are we doing?
So after cleansing, that's when you will apply your eye cream.
Okay.
And then, using a neck cream is a good idea because the skin cell receptors off the face is different. So I do recommend actually using a neck cream. We tend to age really quickly in this area. And then your moisturizer all over and the high real estate areas. So your face, your neck, the sides of the neck. If you have short hair, get the back of the neck, your entire chest area. Yeah, your shoulders and also your hands. So using your moisturizers there. Your moisturizer should essentially be a multivitamin for the skin, not just something that's going to moisturize the skin. It should be feeding and nourishing the skin. So a lot of, super clean, hippy dippy organic products out there, sure, they can moisturize, but they're not really going to do much for mature skin needs. So, maybe someone younger can use that, very ordinary type of product with not a lot of, some actives, but really if it's $14, how active do you really think it's going to be?
Mm-hmm.
There's that concept too, right? Just because those ingredients are in the ingredients list, like hyaluronic acid, vitamin C, all these things, vitamin E, what it comes down to is the efficacy of the final formulation and the stability of the ingredients and not having oils go rancid. So I think that's why I see a lot of oil-based products contributing to the I have sensitive skin thing that I see a lot of because they're toxic and rancid. And not to mention oils on the eyelids can actually disrupt eyelid hydration and cause things like dry eye. So cleanse, moisturize, sun protection every day. So I am a fan of sunscreen, mineral-based sunscreen on the face, eyelids, neck, chest, top of the shoulders, hands every day. Now, that being said, I love full body sun exposure. Okay, I'm in Florida at the moment, having the time of my life here, getting sun on my body. Now, the wild thing is, once I started to do all this biohacking stuff, taking tons of antioxidants, omegas, collagen, adaptogens, before I would go in the sun, I would burn in about 10 minutes. I'd go pink in about 10 minutes. Now I'll have sunscreen on my high real estate areas all day, every day, non-negotiable. And it pretty much lasts all day too with the formulations that I recommend at this time. So you don't really need to reapply and you're still getting that protection. But on the full body now, I can pretty much be outside all day, snorkeling, hiking around, being outside with family, things like that. And I'm not burning. So I'm not burning because my body can handle that additional oxidative stress, UV radiation from the sun. But we need the sun, right? So my hometown in Canada too, just like you, we don't get a lot of vitamin D. And that can have a lot of issues with our health. You can essentially consume agents to function as sunscreen from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm proof in that, right? Fitzpatrick skin type 2, I used to burn in 10 minutes. Now I'm outside all day and I'm not burning. What's going on? This toxic bucket is so empty that I can handle that stress. And then I'm getting the beautiful benefits of the warmth. And if we're going to talk about warmth for a moment and why I'm here in this climate, essentially because my body feels like honey here. My nervous system feels like honey, feels warm. Back in Canada, it can be very cold. And I was also doing a lot of cold plunging. And that was actually putting my body too much in the masculine state, the hypermasculine state. And with cold plunging, if you're in the preconception mode or conception mode, I don't recommend doing cold plunging, maybe like a bowl of ice on the face to get the vagus nerve. But that in and of itself, certain things in biohacking can cause too much stress on the body and then makes your body think you're in survival mode. So moving more towards heat, so saunaing, ionic foot baths are really important for detoxing. I know you mentioned that briefly, ways to detox like you were talking about. But saunaing and ionic foot baths are some of the best ways to detox as well.
Yeah, the foot bath is easy, or the bath. Yeah, but the foot bath, if you're like, I don't have time. Okay, so you can just share with us. You've got your favorite list there. Where can the listeners find that? Of some of your top go-tos.
Yeah, so everything is on my website at rachelvarga.ca. That website is rebranding soon, going through a beautiful radiant transformation myself, but that will always redirect. So everything's at rachelvarga.ca. You go to my favorites biohacking page. All my favorite biohacks are there. That's going to include air purifiers, water purifiers, blue light blocking glasses, which I'm not wearing for this episode, but I do all the time because blue light radiation is just as bad as light outside. We're just getting more of it now. And that's aging skin in the eyes. We're seeing cataracts at way younger ages now, by the way. And then you'll see my skincare store. So when you go on my skincare store, you can shop easy for all things skincare, hair care, hair, skin, nail supplements, dermal rollers, grooming supplies, basically everything I use and that my clients love. That's where you can find the best distilled down all in one place. And I'm always adding and updating, adding, removing items. But when it comes to figuring out what's right for your specific skin needs, I highly recommend booking a one-on-one call with me. And you can use promo code Sarah Clark 15 for 15% off of your one-on-one code. And then if you're just wanting to get started with some free stuff, you can download my skincare checklist at skincarechecklist.com. And tune into the Always Radiant Skin podcast, where Sarah, you've been a guest.
Yes, awesome. And any final thoughts for us, Rachel?
Yeah, I would say just in the space of health influencers left, right, and center, you just want to be really careful who you're getting your information from. So have a good look in somebody's eyes who you're learning from, and you're deciding to trust if they have radiance, if they have light, if they have goodness in their eyes. Because there are a lot of people out there just trying to make money. I mean, this fertility industry is huge,
Mhm.
right? So just, work with people that have similar values that you do as well. And with the skin stuff, don't fall for the bright, shiny objects. It's never going to be a one hit wonder skin supplement, which that's a whole other topic. Top skin supplements touted by the top influencers have tested positive for lead in their, you know, 2 gummies, right? Exceeding the daily allowable limit for lead. So just, be a more conscious consumer. That's what I'm all about. And avoiding the bright, shiny object stuff like products, like supplements, and really stick with products that have been on the market for a while and actually deliver results. Because at the end of the day, you want to use things that are pure, but that also work, right? As clean as possible and then also work.
Absolutely awesome. Well, thanks for all the work that you're doing in this space, Rachel. And definitely check out Rachel's podcast. Radiant, is it Radiant?
Always Radiant Skin podcast.
Always Radiant Skin
Yep.
podcast. We'll have the link in the show notes. And thanks for coming on, Rachel.
My pleasure.